My son earned a fortune and then threw me out onto the street like I was trash. I never thought those words would come out of my mouth. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I'd tell. And if you, for just a second, feel like this sounds familiar, I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me keep unburdening my soul. My name is Rose Miller. I'm 59 years old, and I live in Phoenix, Arizona. Or rather, I lived, because now I don't know where I belong. It all started on a Tuesday afternoon, when the sun was lazily filtering through the windows of my son Steven's house. I was in the kitchen, as always, preparing lunch for the whole family. My hands ached from arthritis, but I kept chopping carrots and onions for the pot roast I had learned to make when Steven was barely crawling. The apron was too big for me. It was one that Jessica, my daughter-in-law, had given me when I came to live with them 2 years ago. "So you don't stain your clothes," she had said with that smile that never reaches her eyes. The apron had a pink floral pattern, now faded from so many washes. Just like me, faded from living for others. The house smelled of pine sol and the scented candles Jessica bought at Nordstrom. Always the best brands, the most expensive. Everything had to look perfect in that Scottsdale home, with its marble floors that I mopped every morning and its white furniture that looked like it was straight out of a magazine. Are you just going to stand there all day like an old houseplant? You don't help, you don't produce, you don't even get in the way with style. Jessica's words hit me like ice water. She was leaning against the kitchen island, her nails perfectly manicured, scrolling through her phone while I sweated over the stove. The spoon slipped from my hand. The metallic clatter against the floor echoed through the kitchen like a choked scream. I bent down to pick it up, feeling my knees crack, my back twinge from the hours I'd spent on my feet. "And look, Steve," Jessica continued as my son came to get water from the fridge. "The kids don't even want to be with her anymore. She always smells like Vicks VapoRub and tells stories nobody cares about. The Rodriguezes are coming for dinner on Saturday, and frankly, it's embarrassing to have her here." Steven, my son, my blood, my everything, said nothing. He just looked down and kept drinking his water. The same brown eyes as his father, the same ones I'd seen cry when he got hurt as a child, now avoided me as if I were an inconvenient stranger. I raised him alone after his father died in that construction accident. Steven was only 4. I fed him on beans and rice when there was no money for meat. I dressed him in clothes I sewed myself at night, after working 10 hours cleaning offices downtown. I made him a man with tears I swallowed and smiles I invented when he asked me why we didn't have a dad like the other kids. Now he was 35, with a 3-story house, 2 new cars, and a wife who had turned him into someone I no longer recognized. That afternoon, I locked myself in the room they had assigned me. It wasn't even a full room. It was more of a utility closet off the laundry room, windowless, with a twin bed that creaked every time I moved. The walls were painted a beige that seemed dirty without being so, and the only decoration was a plastic crucifix that someone had hung there before me. I sat on the edge of the bed and took out my wallet. Inside, I had 3 photographs I'd rescued when I sold my house to come live with them. One of Steven on his graduation day, in his navy blue cap and gown, with a smile that filled me with pride. Another of the twins, my grandchildren, when they turned 3 and still called me Grandma with affection. And the last, the most painful, of my husband Michael on our wedding day, in his borrowed suit and his eyes full of the future. Tears blurred my vision. I cried softly like a punished child, covering my mouth with my hand so they wouldn't hear me. But I was 59 years old, and my heart was in pieces. When did I become invisible? When did I stop being the mom who gave everything for her son and become this burden they tolerated in exchange for my money? Because that's what I was. A burden. A burden who paid rent in the house where I was once welcome. "You have to contribute, Mom. This isn't a hotel. It's $800 a month, okay?" Steven had told me that first month. My Social Security check was for $1,200. After paying my rent, I had $400 left for medicine, clothes, and any personal items I needed. $400 that often ended up spent on gifts for the grandchildren who loved me less each day. That night, during dinner, Jessica continued with her venomous comments. "Ugh, Steve, Your mom left hair in the shower drain again. I told her to use the downstairs bathroom, but she just doesn't listen. The twins, Sam and Sophie, who were 5, looked at me with that mix of confusion and pity that children have when they see an adult suffering. Sam came over to me and whispered, "Grandma, why is Mommy always mad at you?" Before I could answer, Jessica pulled him away by the arm. "Come here, sweetie. Don't bother Grandma while she's eating." The word grandma from her lips sounded like a curse. That night, lying in my bed that smelled of bleach, I heard Stephen and Jessica arguing through the thin walls. "I can't stand her anymore, Steve. She's sad all the time. The kids are getting anxious. And frankly, with what we make now, we could afford a nurse if she ever needed one. She's my mom, Jessica. She's an elderly woman who needs specialized care. We're not a nursing home." I closed my eyes and covered my ears, but the voices seeped through like ice water through the cracks in my heart. My son, my only son, was discussing my place in his home as if I were a cumbersome piece of furniture. The next day, Friday, like every Friday for 25 years, I went to Fred's corner store to buy my lottery ticket. I walked the 3 blocks slowly, feeling the weight of the years and the accumulated sadness. "The usual numbers, Mrs. Miller?" Fred asked as he wiped the counter with a worn rag. "Of course, Fred. You never know," I replied, handing him my $2. I didn't play to win. I played out of habit, to keep alive the hope that something, someday, would change. I played because those 6 numbers were the only thing in the world that truly belonged to me. Air 614, the day Stephen was born. 2309, the day I buried Michael. 1547, the number of my old house in Mesa. 1205, our wedding anniversary. 33, the years Michael and I were together. 07, the day of the month I got married. Numbers with a soul. Numbers with a story. Numbers that held pieces of a life that had been mine before I became this shadow wandering through my son's house, begging for crumbs of affection. I returned home with the ticket tucked in my wallet, next to the photos and the few dollars I had left until the end of the month. Jessica was on the phone, organizing a meeting for her book club. She was talking about expensive restaurants, trips to Cabo, and designer bags that cost more than my entire year of Social Security checks. "You're back?" she asked without looking up from her phone. "The kids are in their room. Give them a bath and make them dinner. Steve and I are going out." Again, the curt orders, the tone you use with the household staff. I climbed the stairs, each step feeling like a mountain. The twins were watching cartoons on the 65-inch TV in their room. A room bigger than my entire closet of a bedroom. "Grandma, are you going to tell us a story?" Sophie asked, her eyes shining. "After your bath, my love," I said, my heart aching with tenderness. I bathed them carefully, playing with them in the tub, singing them the songs I used to sing to their father when he was little. For a moment, I felt useful again, needed, loved. But when Stephen and Jessica returned after midnight, I found them arguing in the kitchen. "Your mom is too attached to the kids. She's spoiling them," Jessica was saying as she poured herself a glass of red wine. "So what do you suggest?" Stephen asked in a voice I no longer recognized. "That she finds a more suitable place. There are some very nice communities in Sun City, with people her own age." I stood behind the door, holding my breath, feeling the words pierce me like cold knives. My son remained silent, a silence that screamed louder than any word, and I knew in that moment that it was all over, that the 2 years I had lived there had been a lie, that my presence was tolerated, not wanted, that my love was a burden, not a gift. I went back to my room without a sound. A ghost in the house I had helped pay for with the money from the sale of my home. I lay down fully dressed, the lottery ticket clutched in my hand, and cried until I had no tears left. Outside, Phoenix carried on. Food trucks sold tacos on the corners. Families ate dinner together. Grandparents told stories that people actually wanted to hear, but I was dying inside, and no one even noticed. Not knowing that the next day, everything would change forever. 2 years earlier, when I sold my little house in Mesa, Stephen had come to me with tears in his eyes and words that sounded like salvation. "Mom, you can't live alone anymore. You had heart surgery, you have diabetes, and we live so far away. Come live with us. The kids need their grandma close." I lived in a two-bedroom bungalow that Michael and I had bought on an installment plan when we were young. Every brick had been paid for with the sweat of our hands. Michael worked construction, and I cleaned houses in the Biltmore area until my pregnancy with Stephen forced me to stay home. The house wasn't much, but it was mine. The walls knew my secrets. The floors had seen my son grow up. The kitchen held the scent of 1,000 meals cooked with love. In the backyard, I had my plants. Red geraniums, mint, a bougainvillea that exploded in a riot of purple every spring. Sell it all, Mom. With that money, you can help us with the mortgage, and we can all live together, like a real family. Stephen's words sounded so sweet, so full of promise. I remember the day I signed the sale papers. The notary was an older man with thick glasses who asked me 3 times if I was sure. Ma'am, once you sign, there's no turning back. Are you absolutely certain you want to do this? I looked at Stephen, who was sitting next to me, squeezing my hand. Yes. My place is with my family. What a fool I was. The sale brought in $180,000. A fortune for me, who had never seen so much money at once. Stephen convinced me to put it into an account that he would manage. So you don't have to worry about a thing, Mom. I'll take care of everything. The first few months were like a dream. They set me up in the master guest suite upstairs, with a private bath and a view of the garden. Jessica smiled at me. The kids ran to hug me when I picked them up from school. Stephen would tell me about his job at the tech company where he'd just gotten a promotion. I cooked because I loved it. I watched the twins because I adored them. I cleaned because I couldn't stand to be idle. But it all felt natural, like part of a family that had finally found its perfect place. Mom, you're a blessing, Stephen would tell me each night. I don't know what we'd do without you. But little by little, the smiles became mechanical. The hugs grew shorter. The conversations were reduced to instructions about what to cook, what to clean, what time to bathe the children. The first charge came after 6 months. Look, Mom, the thing is, expenses have gone up a lot. The electricity, the gas, the water bill. You know how it is. We need you to contribute a little. It's $800 a month. It's practically nothing for someone who doesn't pay rent or for food. $800 from my $1,200 Social Security check. I was left with $400 a month for everything else. Medicine, clothes, any personal needs. Of course, honey. Of course I'll contribute. What else could I say? It was his house, his family, his life that I had asked permission to enter. Then came the room changes. First, they moved me to the other guest room, then to the small utility room. We just need the space for a home gym, Jessica explained. And besides, this way you'll have more privacy. Privacy. As if isolation were a gift. The weekends became a nightmare. Stephen and Jessica's friends would come over. Young couples with luxury cars and designer bags, who talked about trips to Europe and real estate investments. I served the hors d'oeuvres Jessica bought at Whole Foods, cleared the dirty plates, washed the crystal glasses that cost more than my monthly medication. Steve, your mom is just a doll, the guests would say with the forced politeness reserved for domestic help. You're so lucky to have her help so much. And I would smile. I always smiled, as if it were an honor to be the servant in my own family's home. The twins started trading me for their iPad. They no longer wanted me to tell them fairy tales. They preferred their cartoons, their video games that cost what I earned in a month. Grandma, you smell weird, Sam told me one day, wrinkling his nose. It's her ointment for her aches and pains, Jessica explained with false patience. That's why it's better if you play in your room. Okay, sweetie? My grandchildren learned to avoid me, to see me as something annoying that had to be tolerated. But the hardest blow came on my 59th birthday. I had waited all day for some small gesture, some sign of affection. I prepared my favorite pot roast, thinking maybe we would eat together, maybe they would remember what day it was. Nothing. Stephen came home late from work, gave me a kiss on the forehead, and went straight to dinner without asking how my day had been. Jessica didn't even come down from her room. The kids were with the babysitter watching a movie. I sat alone at the kitchen table, eating my pot roast with a side of cornbread, singing "Happy Birthday to You" to myself in a whisper so as not to disturb anyone. That night, I called my best friend Brenda, the only real friend I had left in the world. Brenda, can I get some advice? Of course, honey. What's wrong? You sound so sad. I told her everything. The slights, the charges, the loneliness that was eating me alive. Oh, Rose, my heart just breaks hearing you. They don't deserve you. But look, you've already sold your house. You have nowhere else to go. Just hang in there a little longer. Maybe things will get better. But things didn't get better. They got worse. One afternoon, while I was ironing Jessica's clothes in the laundry room, I found some papers that had fallen out of a purse. They were bank statements. From the account where my money was. My blood ran cold when I saw the transactions. Withdrawals of $5,000, $8,000, $12,000. Transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. Payments to department stores, travel agencies, car dealerships. Stephen had been spending my money, my house, my inheritance, my future. I sat on the laundry room floor, the papers trembling in my hands. There wasn't even $20,000 left of the $180,000 I had trustingly handed over. That money was for my old age, for my medication, for my funeral when the time came. And it had vanished on luxuries for a daughter-in-law who despised me and a son who had learned to see me as a disposable object. That night, I waited for Stephen to get home from work. I stood in the living room, papers in hand, my heart pounding so hard I thought I was going to have another heart attack. Stephen, we need to talk. Not right now, Mom. I'm tired. It's about my money. He stopped cold. His face changed. For the first time in months, he truly looked me in the eye. What money? The money from my house. The money you've been spending without asking me. Stephen fell silent. Jessica appeared from the kitchen as if she had been waiting for this conversation. What's the problem, Rose? You put that money towards the family's expenses. To live here. To live here, yes. Not for you to buy new SUVs and take vacations to Cabo. Are you spying on us? Jessica asked with feigned indignation. I'm asking about my money. Stephen finally spoke, but his words shattered me more than his silence. Mom, that money was invested in the family. In this house where you live, in the food you eat, in the kids' expenses, the ones you claim to love so much. Don't be so ungrateful. Ungrateful. The word struck me like a slap. Me, who had worked since I was 14. Me, who raised my son alone. Me, who sold my home to help them. Me, who had become their personal servant. Ungrateful. I went to my room without another word. I lay down fully dressed, staring at the ceiling that had become the boundary of my world, feeling like a foolish old woman who had given everything for love and received contempt in return. In my wallet was that week's lottery ticket, the same old numbers, the numbers that told my story, my pain, my foolish hope that something could change. I never imagined that everything would change, but not in the way I expected. The following days were a silent hell. Stephen and Jessica acted as if the conversation about my money had never happened. He left for work early, avoiding eye contact. She gave me orders with a coldness that cut deeper than any shout. Rose, the kids have a parent-teacher conference at 3. Pick them up and wait until it's over. Oh, and on your way back, pick up some milk. The store brand is fine. Always on your way, as if my 59-year-old legs were a free taxi service. I would walk the half-mile to the Montessori school the twins attended, carrying my reusable shopping bag, feeling like a shadow moving through the city with no real purpose. The Phoenix sun burned my face, but inside I was cold, a chill that not even the shawl my mother had knitted for me before she died could warm. At the school, the other grandmothers would greet me politely, but I knew I didn't belong in their world. They arrived in cars, wore new clothes, carried designer bags. They talked about their trips to Vegas, their grandkids' piano lessons, the restaurants where they would celebrate family birthdays. I would stay quiet, listening to conversations about lives that seemed like something out of a movie, while I waited for the conference to end so I could take home 2 children who loved me less each day. Grandma, why don't you have a car like Jimena's grandma? Sophie asked me one afternoon as we waited for the bus. Because I don't need one, sweetie. Walking is good for you. A lie. I didn't have a car because I couldn't afford one, not even the upkeep. My Social Security had become a resource managed by others, and I survived on the crumbs they deemed sufficient for my personal expenses. One night, While washing the dishes from the dinner they had enjoyed in the main dining room while I ate alone in the kitchen, I overheard Jessica on the phone with her mother. "No, Mom. It's not that easy to get rid of her. Imagine the drama if we kick her out after she sold her house to come here. But I swear, I'm at the end of my rope. She's in the house all day, asking what we need, trying to help with everything." I stood frozen, my hands submerged in soapy water, feeling each word pierce me like shards of glass. Steve doesn't say anything because he feels guilty, but I know he's sick of it too. The kids barely pay attention to her anymore. The other day, Sam asked me why Grandma was always so sad. How do you explain that to a child? I dropped the plate I was washing. It shattered against the stainless steel sink, the fragments falling like glass tears into the dirty water. "What was that?" Jessica yelled from the living room. "Nothing. A plate slipped. Be more careful." That set cost a fortune. I picked up the pieces with trembling hands, feeling the shards dig into my fingers. Small wounds that didn't hurt nearly as much as the words I had just heard. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay staring at the ceiling, remembering when Stephen had a fever as a child and I would stay up all night, putting damp cloths on his forehead, bringing him chamomile tea, singing lullabies until he fell asleep. I remembered when he graduated from high school and hugged me, crying, because he'd gotten a scholarship to college. "I owe it all to you, Mom. Everything." I remembered when he called me from the hospital the day the twins were born. His voice choked with emotion. "Mom, they're beautiful, and they're going to have the best grandma in the world." When had those promises become lies? When had love turned to tolerance, and tolerance to contempt? The next day was Friday, my lottery day. But when I got to Fred's corner store, I found him closing up early. "Excuse me, Fred. Are you not selling tickets today?" "Oh, Mrs. Miller, the machine's broken. They won't be out to fix it till Monday." I walked home without my weekly ticket. For the first time in 25 years, I hadn't bought my numbers. I felt as if I had broken a promise to myself, as if I had lost the last ritual that connected me to the woman I used to be before I became invisible. That evening, Jessica threw a dinner party to celebrate a big contract Stephen had closed at work. She invited her parents, her sister, the twins' godparents. The house filled with laughter, music, toasts with wine that cost more than my monthly budget. I served all night. Appetizers, main course, dessert, coffee. I cleared plates, washed glasses, mopped up spills. No one thanked me. No one invited me to sit down. No one included me in the photos they took to remember this special night. "Rose, can you put away the leftover dessert? And make sure it's covered properly," Jessica ordered as she reapplied her lipstick in the powder room mirror. I put away the dessert. I washed every last dish. I swept the crumbs from the dining room floor. And when everyone had finally gone, I sat in my room and ate the leftovers from the celebration of my son's success, chocolate cake that tasted of humiliation. "Are you done cleaning up?" Stephen asked, peeking through the door. "Yes, honey. Thanks. Oh, and Mom, Jessica and I have been talking. We think it would be good for you to find some activities. To get out more. Meet people your own age." What he didn't say, but what I understood perfectly, was, "So you're not here all the time, getting in the way of our perfect lives. What kind of activities?" "I don't know. A knitting class? A book club? Whatever. Just keep yourself busy. Busy. Away from them." The next morning, I woke up with a pressure in my chest that wasn't from my diabetes. It was from the accumulated sadness, from the anger poisoning my blood, from the daily humiliation that was killing me from the inside out. I got up, put on my oldest robe, and went to the kitchen to make breakfast. Like always. Like every day for 2 years. But as I was whisking the eggs for the scramble that Stephen liked, something inside me broke. It wasn't an explosion. It was more like an old pipe bursting. First a drip, then another, until all the pent-up pressure spilled out uncontrollably. I dropped the whisk in the pan and sat down on the kitchen floor. Right there, on the cold, imported ceramic tile that I mopped every day. And I cried. I cried for the house I had lost, for the money that had been stolen from me, for the grandchildren who avoided me, for the son who let his wife treat me like trash, for the forgotten birthdays and the sleepless nights when they went out partying and I stayed to watch the children without a word of thanks. I cried for Michael, who had died too soon to see what had become of the son we raised with so much love. I cried for the woman I had been and who I no longer knew where to find. "What are you doing on the floor like a crazy person?" Jessica was standing in the kitchen doorway in her silk robe, her face a mask of mourning annoyance. "Sorry." I dropped something. "Well, get up and finish making breakfast. The kids are in a hurry." I pulled myself up, feeling the ache in my knees, the ache in my soul. I finished cooking while Jessica poured herself coffee in the mug that had been my mother's, one of the few things I'd brought from my old house, which she now used without asking. Stephen came down, ate his breakfast in silence, kissed his wife, and left for work without looking at me. The twins ate their scrambled eggs while watching cartoons on a phone, without a word to me. And I was left alone in that kitchen that wasn't mine, cleaning up the mess of a family that tolerated me in exchange for free services. That afternoon, when I picked up the kids from school, I sat on a bench at Encanto Park. The twins were playing on the swings while I watched them from a distance, as I had done so many times. But for the first time in 2 years, I asked myself, what if I didn't go back? How long would it take them to notice I was gone? Would they look for me because they missed me? Or because they needed someone to make dinner? The wind rustled the leaves of the great old trees, trees that had watched generations of Phoenix families grow, families that truly loved each other, where grandparents were treasures, not burdens. When we got home, Jessica was waiting for me with a smile that boded ill. "Rose, I have to tell you something. On Monday, an appraiser is coming. We're selling the house." My mouth went dry. "Selling? Why?" "Stephen got an incredible promotion. We're moving to Silverleaf, to a much bigger house, with a pool, a view." Silverleaf, the luxury community where the executives and successful entrepreneurs lived. And me? Jessica looked at me as if the question surprised her. "Oh, Rose. You've served your purpose here. You helped us a lot. But now we need space to grow as a family." The floor opened up beneath me. "My purpose?" "Yes. You gave us the money we needed to get on our feet. You looked after the kids while we worked. But now we're ready to be independent. Independent. Without me. Without the woman who had made everything they had possible." That night, I waited for Stephen to return from work. I stood in the living room with the bank statements in one hand and my trampled dignity in the other. When I saw him walk in, something in my face must have warned him this wouldn't be an easy conversation. "Stephen, we need to talk. Now." "Mom, I'm tired. Tomorrow." "No. Now." He sank into the Italian leather sofa that I had unknowingly helped pay for, loosening his tie with the weary gesture of someone who knew he'd been caught. "Explain this," I said, throwing the papers onto the coffee table. Stephen didn't even feign surprise. He looked them over with the calm of someone who already had his lies prepared. "Mom, that money was an investment in the family, in improving our standard of living, in giving the kids a better education. Is Jessica's BMW SUV an education for the kids? It's safe transportation for the family. Was the trip to Cabo last month an education? It was a necessary break, the stress from work. Are your wife's Louis Vuitton bags an education?" Stephen stood up, annoyed, as if I were the one in the wrong. "Mom, you came here because you had no other choice. We gave you a home, food, care. That money was used to maintain the standard of living we all enjoy." "I don't enjoy anything. I work like a maid in a house I helped pay for. No one is forcing you to do anything." The words hit me like slaps. I stood silent, looking at my son, searching his face for any trace of the boy he had been, of the grateful young man who promised to always take care of me. "You're right," I said finally. "No one is forcing me." And I went up to my room, feeling his eyes on my back like daggers. The following days, I stopped cooking. I stopped cleaning. I stopped looking after the twins. I stayed in my room, emerging only to use the bathroom or to find something to eat when they weren't around. The reaction was immediate. Jessica would come up and pound on my door like a fury. "What is wrong with you? The kids are asking why you aren't making them breakfast. Stephen had to be late for work because there was no one to take them to school. Hire a maid, or better yet, a nanny. Are you crazy? Do you know how much that costs? The same as it cost you to keep me. But they'll expect to be paid." Jessica just stood there in the doorway, mouth agape. as if she couldn't believe I had found my voice after 2 years of silence. On the third day of my silent strike, Stephen came up with the twins in tow. "Mom, look who wants to see you." Sam and Sophie stood shyly in the doorway. They didn't run to hug me anymore. They had already learned that I was a problem. "Grandma, why don't you make us pancakes anymore?" Sam asked in his sweet little voice. My heart broke. These children weren't to blame for having parents who had turned me into a disposable object. They only knew that something had changed, that the house felt different, that the adults spoke in hushed tones and always seemed angry. "Because Grandma is a little sad, my love. Can we do something to make you not sad?" Sophie came closer and stroked my face with her tiny hands. For a moment, I felt like I mattered again, that I existed for more than just serving. But Stephen pulled them back. "Let's go, kids. Let Grandma rest." When they left, I stared at my wrinkled hands, my prominent veins, my fingers swollen with arthritis. These hands had worked for 45 years. They had raised a son. They had built a life that was now crumbling like a sandcastle. On Saturday morning, while they were having a happy family breakfast in the backyard, I came down to the kitchen for some coffee. Spread across the table were real estate brochures for homes in Silverleaf, mansions with pools, with 4 bedrooms, with home offices and game rooms. All of them cost over $2 million. "Have you seen the houses we're considering?" Jessica asked with false sweetness, coming in to pour herself more coffee. I picked up one of the brochures. Emerald Model Home, 4,500 square feet, infinity pool, backyard with a built-in grill, climate-controlled wine cellar. It's very nice, isn't it? Steve already talked to the bank. With our income and the down payment we have, we'll be approved for the loan no problem. The down payment. My money. And me? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Jessica sighed as if the question exhausted her. "Oh, Rose, you know we love you very much, but these houses are designed for nuclear families. They don't have space for, well, for older people with special needs." "Special needs?" "Your medicine, your aches and pains, your mood. It would be better if you found a place where you can be with people like you. People like me. Old people. Burdensome people. Disposable people. But I put down the money for this new life. And we are eternally grateful. That's why Stephen is going to give you a severance package so you can get settled in a nice place." Severance. As if I were a fired employee. That afternoon, Stephen drove me to see 3 senior living communities. The first one smelled of urine and disinfectant. The second had old women sitting in wheelchairs, staring blankly at a television. The third looked like a prison disguised as a hotel. "They're very well maintained, Mom. They have activities, 24-hour nurses, balanced meals. Do you see me as one of those women? I see you as someone who deserves specialized care." We drove back to the house in silence. Stephen turned on the radio, as if music could fill the chasm that had opened between us. I stared out the window at the streets of Phoenix where I had lived my entire life, wondering if I would soon be a stranger in my own city. That night, while the whole family slept, I lay awake in my windowless room, feeling my life drain away drop by drop. On the nightstand was the photo of Stephen graduating, but looking at it brought me no comfort anymore. That boy, so proud of his mom, had grown into a man who saw her as an obstacle. I opened the drawer where I kept my most precious things. The rosary Michael had given me on our first anniversary. The letters Stephen wrote me from college, full of love and gratitude. The high school equivalency diploma I earned at 40. Studying at night after working all day. And there, at the bottom, I found the lottery ticket from the week before. The one I'd bought on Thursday because Fred's store had closed early on Friday. The same old numbers. Crinkled. Forgotten. Just like me. I smoothed it out carefully and placed it next to the photographs. Without knowing that this yellowed piece of paper would change everything. Without knowing that on the following Monday, when I went to check it more out of habit than hope, my life would be split in two. The before and after of discovering that betrayal has many faces, but the most painful one belongs to a son who loves you only when it's convenient. Monday morning, I woke up with a strange feeling in my chest. It wasn't the usual ache. It was something like curiosity. Like when I was a girl and I'd find a quarter on the street and run to the store to see what I could buy. The crinkled ticket was still on my nightstand. I picked it up with trembling fingers and decided I would go check it. Not because I thought I had won anything. After 25 years of playing the same numbers, I had lost faith in miracles. But I needed to get out of that house. To breathe air that wasn't poisoned with contempt. "Where are you going?" Jessica asked when she saw me walking toward the door. "To the store. Don't be long. I have a hair appointment and I need you to watch the kids." She didn't even ask if I felt okay, if I needed anything, if I wanted company. To her, I was an object that had to report its movements. I walked the 3 blocks to Fred's corner store, feeling the weight in every step. The Phoenix air was thick, heavy with the smog of millions of people who had places to go, purposes to fulfill, families waiting for them with genuine love. "Morning, Mrs. Miller." Fred greeted me with the wrinkled smile that had been my only source of kindness for 2 years. "How have you been?" "Getting by, Fred. I have this ticket from last week. Would you mind checking it for me?" "Of course." Fred took the crumpled paper and smoothed it out on the scratched glass counter where he displayed gum and cigarettes. He typed the numbers into his old machine, the one that sounded like it was about to break down at any moment. The machine beeped once, then again, and again. Fred frowned and re-entered the numbers. More beeps. "Mrs. Miller." His voice sounded strange, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. I think you need to sit down." "Why? What's wrong?" This ticket is the winner from Sunday's drawing." The world stood still. The sounds of the street faded into a distant hum. My heart began to pound so hard I thought it would burst from my chest. "What did you say?" $5.3 million, ma'am. This is the winning ticket." I sank into the plastic chair where Fred kept his newspapers, feeling my legs give way. 5.3 million. A number that didn't fit in my head, that had no place in the life of a woman who counted pennies to buy medicine. "Are you sure?" "Positive. Look." He showed me the screen where my numbers appeared. The numbers that carried the story of my life. Stephen's birthday. The day I buried Michael. The number of my lost home. My wedding anniversary that no one remembered anymore. My numbers. My story. My ticket. Tears began to stream down my face uncontrollably. But they weren't tears of joy. They were tears of a pain so deep it felt like it came from the center of the earth. Because I knew that even with those millions, even with all that fortune, my son had already decided to get rid of me. The money wouldn't buy his love. It wouldn't erase the cruel words. It wouldn't give me back the 2 years of humiliation. "Are you all right, Mrs. Miller?" "Yes, Fred. Just, can you do me a favor?" "Anything you ask. Don't tell anyone, please. I need time to think." Fred nodded with the wisdom of someone who had seen many lives pass through his store. Many stories of families built and destroyed with equal ease. "Your secret's safe with me." I walked back to the house in a daze. Every step hurt, but not from the arthritis. My soul ached. Because I had just discovered I had $5.3 million, but I was still the poorest woman in the world. When I entered, Jessica had already left for her appointment. The twins were watching TV, eating cereal from the box because no one had made them breakfast. "Grandma, will you make us pancakes?" Sophie asked. "Of course, my love. I made them just like always. With love, with care, knowing that they might be the last I would ever make in that kitchen that was never mine." While they ate, I watched them closely, memorizing their little faces, their gestures, the way they chewed while focused on the cartoons. They were innocent. It wasn't their fault they had parents who had turned love into a business transaction. When Stephen got home from work, he acted as if nothing had happened. "Have you thought about those communities we saw?" he asked, while eating the stew I had prepared, because, despite everything, I couldn't stop being who I was. "Yes. And I think you're right. It's time for me to find my own place." Stephen smiled, relieved. The old burden had finally understood she was in the way. "I'm so glad you see it that way, Mom. You'll be better off. You'll have friends your own age, activities you enjoy. When do you want me to leave?" "It's not that we want you to leave," he lied with the skill of someone who had practiced the line. "It's that we want what's best for you." "I understand." "When?" "The new house will be ready in 2 weeks. We could help you move next weekend." 2 weeks. 14 days to close the most painful chapter of my life. All right. That night, while Stephen and Jessica went out to celebrate the successful contract that would allow them to move into their mansion, I stayed to watch the twins. I bathed them, put them in their pajamas, and told them a story about princes and princesses who lived happily ever after. "Grandma, are you going to live happily ever after?" Sam asked as I tucked him in. "I hope so, my love. Are you going to visit us at the new house?" "If I'm invited, of course I will." But I already knew I wouldn't be invited. That once they cut me out of their lives, I would become an uncomfortable memory they would prefer to forget. When they were asleep, I went down to the living room and sat on the sofa where I had spent so many nights watching TV alone while they went out to enjoy the life my money had made possible. The house was silent, but it wasn't a peaceful silence. It was the silence of a place where I no longer belonged. I took out my old phone and dialed the number of my friend Brenda, the only person in the world who still remembered I existed. "Rose? What a surprise. How are you, honey?" "Not good, Brenda. Not good at all." "What happened now?" I told her everything. The sale of the house, the vanished money, the new house where there was no room for me. "Oh, honey, those bastards are taking advantage of you." "I know, but what can I do? I have nowhere to go. Come stay with me. My place is tiny, but there's room for both of us." Brenda lived in a small tract house in Tempe, with 1.5 bedrooms and more love than existed in my son's entire mansion. "I can't impose on you like that, Brenda." "What imposition? That's what friends are for better or for worse." For the first time in weeks, I smiled a real smile. "Let me think about it." "There's nothing to think about. I've decided. You're coming over on Friday." I hung up the phone feeling something that resembled hope. Hope. The one thing I thought I'd lost and might just be able to get back. The next day, Tuesday, was grocery day. Jessica gave me money for the week's shopping as usual. And don't buy anything unnecessary. Just what's on the list. I walked through the farmer's market like a robot, buying the reddest tomatoes, the freshest cheese, the meat they would eat while I chewed on leftovers. The vendors knew me. Donna, who sold vegetables. Mr. Ramirez from the butcher shop. Gloria, who made the most delicious tortillas in the whole market. "How are you, Mrs. Miller?" Donna asked as she weighed the green beans. "Getting by, Donna. You look tired." "It's just my age." But it wasn't my age. It was soul weariness. The exhaustion of loving without being loved, of giving without receiving, of existing as a ghost in a life I had helped build. When I got back to the house, Jessica was on the phone with her sister, planning the housewarming party. "Yes, it's going to be amazing. We're going to hire a caterer, a bartender, the works. A real party. A party I wouldn't be invited to celebrate a house that my life savings had made possible." That night, after serving dinner and washing the dishes, I locked myself in my room with the lottery ticket. I looked at it under the yellow light of the bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. $53 million, minus taxes. A little over $5 million. Enough money to buy 10 houses like the one they were buying. Enough to live with dignity for the rest of my days. Enough to show them that the burdensome old woman they wanted to throw away was worth more than all of them put together. But more important than the money was the lesson I had just learned. That sometimes life gives you exactly what you need at the exact moment you need to find your strength. And I had just found mine. For 5 days, I kept the secret like a ticking time bomb in my chest. Every morning, I woke up remembering I had over $5 million, but that I was still sleeping in a windowless room, enduring humiliation from a daughter-in-law who treated me worse than an employee. On Wednesday, while Jessica was getting a manicure with money that had once been mine, I took a bus downtown. In my purse, I carried the most important documents of my life. My birth certificate, my driver's license, the lottery ticket, and a determination I hadn't felt in decades. My first stop was a Chase Bank on Central Avenue. I had never entered a bank for anything more important than cashing my Social Security check. The grand lobby intimidated me with its marble floors, its executives in suits, and its cameras that seemed to judge every person who walked through the door. "Good morning. How can I help you?" a polished young woman asked me, her professional smile not quite reaching her eyes. "I want to open a new account. Just for me. Of course. What type of account are you interested in?" One where no one else can touch the money. The girl gave me a strange look but kept her saleswoman's smile. An individual savings account, then. What will be your opening deposit? $5.3 million. The smile froze on her face. She looked me up and down, taking in my discount store blouse, my worn-out shoes, my fake leather purse I'd bought years ago. I'm sorry? I said. I won the lottery, and I want an account where only I can touch the money. In less than 10 minutes, 3 managers appeared, all treating me like royalty. They offered me coffee, water, cookies. They ushered me into a private office with leather chairs and a spectacular view of the city skyline. Mrs. Miller, it's an honor to have you as a client, the branch manager said, an elegant man who smelled of expensive cologne. We will ensure that your money is completely protected. Completely protected. From outside thieves and from family thieves. I want it so that only I can access this account. No one else. Not with power of attorney, not with anything. Understood perfectly. I signed papers I didn't fully understand, but they assured me my money would be ironclad against anyone who might try to steal it from me again. They gave me a gold debit card that felt heavier than normal plastic, as if even the bank understood my life had just been upgraded. My second stop was a law firm on Camelback Road. I had seen their ad in the paper, specializing in family and estate law. I needed to understand my rights, to know exactly what I had lost and what I could get back. Mr. Hernandez was a man in his 50s, with an office full of books and diplomas that made me feel small and ignorant. But he listened intently as I told him my story. Mrs. Miller, I'm very sorry for your situation. Unfortunately, if you gave them the money voluntarily and have no documents proving it was a loan, it's legally very difficult to recover. What if I have proof that they lied to me to get me to sell my house? That would be different. What kind of proof? I showed him the text messages where Stephen promised to always take care of me, the voicemails where he said the money would be for the whole family, the bank statements that showed how they had spent my inheritance on personal luxuries. This is very useful, the lawyer said, examining each document. We can argue fraudulent inducement, elder financial abuse, breach of fiduciary duty. It won't be easy, but we have a case. How much would it cost? For someone in your previous financial situation, it would have been impossible. But now, he smiled. Now, we can get justice. My third stop was the fanciest real estate office I could find in the Biltmore area, just a few miles from my son's house. I wanted a home, not an ostentatious mansion like the one they were buying. Something simple, dignified, where I could live in peace. I'm looking for a small house, 2 bedrooms max, with a yard for my plants. What's your price range, ma'am? Whatever is necessary. The agent, a young, efficient woman, showed me 3 options. The third one stole my heart the moment I saw it. A single-story home in the Willow Historic District, with a large patio, a spacious kitchen, and a tranquility you could feel from the front door. This one is listed at $600,000. I'll take it. Can I pay in cash? The agent's eyes widened. In cash? Yes. How soon could I move in? If everything goes smoothly with the paperwork, within a week. Perfect. I would be in my new home before they even moved into theirs. I returned to Stephen's house late that evening, with a calm in my chest I hadn't felt in 2 years. It wasn't the peace of resignation. It was the calm of someone who had just taken back control of her own destiny. Where have you been? Jessica asked suspiciously. You left early this morning. Running errands. What errands? Getting ready for the move. Oh, good. Have you decided which community you want to go to? Yes, I've decided. That night I had dinner with them for the last time, though they didn't know it. I listened to them talk about their plans for the new house, about the pool where the kids would learn to swim, about the home office where Stephen would work on Fridays. They spoke of the future as if I no longer existed, as if I were a closed chapter in their lives. The Wilsons are going to be so jealous when they see the new house, Jessica said, cutting her steak with delicate movements. Their pool is nothing compared to ours. And the office has a view of the whole valley, Stephen added. My clients will be so impressed. I ate in silence, chewing each bite slowly, savoring not the food, but the irony. They were planning to impress others with the money they had stolen from me. not knowing that the burdensome old woman had a fortune large enough to buy their entire gated community. After dinner, I went to my room and took out a sheet of paper, an ordinary sheet from the notepad I used for grocery lists. But this time, I was going to write something different. Dear Stephen and Jessica, this week I won $5.3 million in the lottery with the numbers you always considered a waste of money. I will not be sharing it, because the real prize was realizing just in time how little I truly mean to you. Tomorrow, I am moving into my new home, a home you will only know the address of if you learn to treat me with the respect I deserve. With love, your favorite Burden. I folded the letter and put it in my purse. I would leave it on the kitchen table on Friday morning, once I was already in my new house, safe in the knowledge that they could no longer hurt me. For the first time in 2 years, I fell asleep smiling. Friday dawned with a clear sky that seemed tailor-made for new beginnings. I got up at 5 in the morning, just as I had for 2 years, to prepare their breakfast before they woke up. But this time, it wasn't to serve them. It was to leave. I had packed my things into 2 old suitcases during the night. I didn't have much to take. The worn-out clothes that fit my $400 monthly budget, the 3 photographs I treasured, Michael's rosary, and the letter that would change everything forever. At 6, while the house was still silent, I left the letter on the kitchen table, right next to the sugar bowl where Jessica sweetened her coffee every morning. I placed it there like someone leaving a bomb with a lit fuse. I called the taxi I had ordered the night before. The driver, an older man who reminded me of Michael, helped me with the suitcases without asking any awkward questions. Downtown, ma'am? No. To my new house. The word sounded strange in my own mouth. My new house. After 2 years of living on borrowed time in a borrowed space, I was finally going to have something that was completely mine. The house in the Willow Historic District was exactly as I remembered it. Small but dignified, with a yard where I could already picture my geraniums and mint growing free. The keys felt heavy in my hand, like fulfilled promises. It's a nice house, the taxi driver commented as he helped me with the bags. Yes, it's mine. I stood in the doorway, breathing in air that wasn't contaminated with reproaches or orders. The silence here was different. It wasn't the silence of someone in the way. It was the peace of someone who was finally where she belonged. At 8:30, my cell phone started ringing. Stephen. Mom? Where are you? Jessica says you're not in your room. It's not my room anymore. I'm at my house. What house? What are you talking about? Read the letter I left on the kitchen counter. I hung up and turned off the phone. I needed time to settle in, to get used to the idea that for the first time in 2 years, no one was going to yell at me, order me around, or treat me like a servant. I unpacked my few belongings and arranged them in the master closet. My 3 blouses looked lost in so much space, but they would soon have company. With over $5 million, I could buy any clothes I wanted, eat whatever I craved, and live like the queen I had always been without knowing it. At 10, the phone rang again. This time it was Jessica. Rose? What does this letter mean? What money are you talking about? Her voice sounded different. The usual arrogance was gone. There was fear in it. Panic. The money I won with my numbers. The ones you said were a waste of time. You won the lottery? That's right. How much? What the letter says. But that's... Are you sure? Positive. I've already claimed it. A long silence. I could hear her ragged breathing, her brain crunching numbers, understanding that the golden goose had just flown the coop. Rose, you obviously have to share that money with the family. We are your family. When did you call me family while you were charging me rent? When did you treat me like family while you were spending my life savings on your luxuries? You're being dramatic. Everything we did was for your own good. Kicking me out of your new life was for my own good? We weren't kicking you out. We were helping you find a more appropriate place. I found one. And I don't need either of you for anything. I hung up again. The phone kept ringing all morning, but I didn't answer. I had more important things to do. I went to the fanciest grocery store in the neighborhood. One I had never entered because everything cost triple what it did at the farmer's market. I filled my cart with everything I wanted. Norwegian salmon, imported cheeses, red wine, Belgian chocolate, fruits that looked like works of art. At the checkout, the cashier gave me a curious look when she saw the total. "That'll be $350, ma'am." Perfect. I pulled out my new gold debit card and swiped it with a satisfaction I had never experienced before. It wasn't about the money. It was about the freedom. The freedom to buy whatever I wanted without asking permission, without justifying every dollar, without getting disapproving looks for spending too much. When I got home, my phone showed 47 missed calls. Stephen, Jessica, even numbers I didn't recognize. They had probably already told half the world about my winnings, looking for allies to convince me to do the right thing with the money. I decided to answer one call. It was Stephen, and his voice sounded broken. "Mom, please, we need to talk. Come to the house." "No." "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, I'm not going to your house. If you want to talk to me, you come to mine." "Where are you?" I gave him my new address and hung up. I wanted him to come to my territory. I wanted him to feel what it was like to be a guest in someone else's home. He arrived in less than an hour, with Jessica and the twins. The children ran to me as soon as they saw me. "Grandma, is this your new house?" "Yes, my loves." "Do you like it?" "It's awesome. Can we play in the yard?" I let them run outside while Stephen and Jessica came in with long faces, looking at my new house like appraisers calculating its value. "It's nice, Mom," Stephen said in a forced voice. "But don't you think it's a little big for just you?" "No, it's perfect." "Look, Mom." Jessica tried her sweetest smile. "Obviously, we are so happy that you won the lottery. It's a blessing for the whole family. For me? It's a blessing for me. But we're family, Rose. Blessings are meant to be shared in a family. Like you shared the money from my house with me?" Stephen cleared his throat, uncomfortable. "Mom, that money was invested in giving the kids a better life, in creating family stability. Is Jessica's SUV family stability? It's safe transportation for the children. Are the trips to Cabo stability? Those are important family memories. They had an answer for everything, rehearsed justifications, arguments that turned their selfishness into a virtue. Fine. Then I'm going to invest this money in stability, too. My stability." Jessica switched tactics. Her eyes filled with fake tears. "Rose, the kids miss you. They asked why you left without saying goodbye. They're confused." I looked out the window at Sam and Sophie playing in my yard, laughing in a way I hadn't seen them laugh in months, free, without the tension that hung in the air at the other house. The kids are fine, and they can come visit me whenever they want. "And us?" Stephen asked. "Are we nothing to you anymore?" The question hurt more than I expected, because despite everything, he was my son, my only son, the boy I had raised alone, to whom I had given everything. "You will always be my son, Stephen. But I need you to respect me as your mother." "I do respect you." "No. You tolerated me. You used me. But you did not respect me." Jessica stood up from the armchair she had sat in without permission. "This is ridiculous. Rose, you came to our house when you had nowhere else to go. We gave you a roof, food, a family. And now that you have money, you abandon us? You abandoned me first." I just finally realized it. "What do you want us to do? Get on our knees and beg for forgiveness?" The question was sarcastic, but something in my eyes must have warned her the answer wasn't what she expected. "I want you to treat me like what I am. Your mother, your mother-in-law, the grandmother of your children. Not an employee you can fire when she's no longer useful. We never treated you like an employee. You charged me rent. You gave me orders. You hid me when company came over. You threw me out when you didn't need me anymore." Stephen ran his hands through his hair, desperate. "Okay, we made mistakes, but we can fix this. Come back home. We'll share the money. We'll buy a bigger house where we can all live comfortably." "No." "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, I've had my fill of being tolerated by my own family. Now I want to be loved, or I want to be left alone." Jessica exploded. "You're being selfish. That money could secure the children's future." "The children's future was secured when I sold my house, which you spent on a bunch of useless crap." I froze. I hadn't used language like that in years. But the words came out of my mouth with a satisfaction I didn't know I needed. "Rose, watch your language," Jessica scolded, as if she still had authority over me. "In my house? I'll speak however I damn well please. The children ran inside, oblivious to the tension that had seized the living room. Grandma, can we come play tomorrow? Of course you can, my loves. Whenever you want. And for a sleepover? That too. Stephen and Jessica looked at each other, understanding they had lost control of the situation, that the submissive old woman had transformed into a woman with the power to make her own decisions. Mom, think about it, Stephen said as they prepared to leave. Family is the most important thing. You're right, I answered, hugging the twins. That's why I'm going to teach these children what family respect really means. They left in silence, defeated for the first time in 2 years, and I stayed in my house, my real house, feeling like I had finally stopped being a guest in my own life. The first few days in my new house were like learning to walk again. I would wake up at 5 out of habit, but I no longer had to rush to make breakfast for people who saw me as a kitchen appliance. I would stay in bed, listening to the sweet silence of a home where no one shouted orders at me. On Saturday morning, while I was drinking coffee in my kitchen, from my favorite mug, my friend Brenda arrived with a pot of her famous chicken soup and tears in her eyes. Rose, I can't believe what you told me on the phone. Did you really win that much money? I sure did, Brenda. And were they really that awful to you? Worse. I didn't even tell you the half of it. Brenda sat at my new table, looking around in admiration. This house is beautiful, and it smells like freedom. She was right. It did smell like freedom. Over that week, Stephen called every day, first with pleas, then with threats, and finally with emotional blackmail that no longer worked on me. The kids ask about you all the time. They can come over whenever they want. Jessica is so sorry for how she treated you. Good for her. Mom, we're family. Families forgive each other. Families respect each other. And you never respected me. You're acting like a spoiled child. Those words hurt less than I expected. Because for the first time in my life, I held the power. I decided when to answer the phone, when to receive visitors, when to give second chances. On Thursday of that week, as I was watering my new plants in the garden, a white BMW SUV pulled up, the same one I had unknowingly paid for. Stephen, Jessica, and the twins got out. But this time, Jessica's demeanor was completely different. She approached humbly, her head bowed, carrying a gift basket of fruit and cookies. Rose, we came to apologize. The words seemed to cause her physical pain to pronounce. Apologize for what? For everything. For not valuing you. For treating you poorly. For not recognizing everything you did for us. Sam and Sophie ran to me, oblivious to the adult drama. Just happy to see their grandma in a house that smelled like homemade cookies instead of tension. Grandma, are we allowed to be loud here? Sam asked. You can be as loud as you want here, my love. And there was the difference. In their house, the children had to moderate their voices, walk instead of run, exist without bothering anyone. In my house, they could just be kids. Mom? Stephen approached, his face a mask of regret that was 2 years too late. I know we messed up. I know we didn't treat you like you deserved. Go on. We want to fix things. We want you to be part of the family again. Now that I have money? It's not about the money. Of course it's about the money. For 2 years I was a burden. Now that I'm a millionaire, I'm part of the family again. Jessica tried to take my hand, but I pulled it away. Rose, please, the kids need you. We need you. You need me. You don't love me. You need me. The difference was abyssal. And for the first time in my life, I understood it perfectly. What do you want us to do? Stephen asked, and in his voice was a desperation that would have moved me a week ago. I want you to learn to live without my money, just like I learned to live without your love. But we're family. Family is built on respect, not convenience. They left that day without getting what they came for. But the children stayed for 2 hours, playing in my garden, eating the cookies I made them, laughing in a way I hadn't heard in months. When Stephen came to pick them up, Sam hugged me tight. Grandma, can we come over on Sunday? Whenever you want, my love. Will you make pancakes? Whatever you like best. Stephen looked at me with a mixture of pain and recognition. Mom, is there any way to fix this? Yes, I said, looking him in the eye. By learning that love isn't bought, it isn't sold, and it isn't taken for granted. It has to be cared for, every single day. The following weeks were a parade of distant relatives who appeared out of thin air, cousins who hadn't spoken to me in years, aunts who had forgotten I existed, old acquaintances who suddenly remembered our friendship, all of them with new smiles and urgent needs. "Rose, so good to hear about you. Hey, you remember your cousin Magdalena? She's very sick, needs an incredibly expensive surgery. Rose, my son wants to go to medical school, but we can't afford the tuition. Rose, our roof is caving in. We just need a tiny little loan." I told them all the same thing. "I'll think about it." But I had already decided how I would spend my money. I opened a savings account for Sam and Sophie, $25,000 for each of them, which would grow until they turned 18. Their college education was secure, and their parents couldn't touch a cent. I donated $50,000 to a senior center in Sun City, the kind of place Stephen had wanted to lock me away in. But my donation came with conditions: that the residents had the right to go out whenever they pleased, to receive visitors without restrictions, and to be treated with dignity. I bought a car. Nothing fancy. A new white Toyota Camry that would give me the independence to go wherever I wanted without asking anyone for a ride. And for the first time in my life, I bought new clothes. Not from a discount rack. Not from a clearance sale. I walked into Nordstrom and tried on dresses that made me feel like a woman again, shoes that were comfortable but elegant, a real leather handbag that smelled of luxury and self-determination. On Sunday, as promised, Sam and Sophie came over for pancakes. They arrived in a taxi because Stephen had things to do. "Why didn't Dad come?" Sophie asked. "Because he's busy, sweetie." "Is he mad at you?" "He's not mad. He's learning." "Learning what?" "That grandmas aren't toys you can put away when you're done playing with them." The kids giggled, not fully understanding, but sensing something different in my voice. Something that sounded like strength. After we ate while they were playing in the garden, I received an unexpected call. "Mrs. Miller, this is Channel 12 News. We heard about your story and we'd like to do an interview." "What story?" "The one about the millionaire grandmother who was kicked out of her son's house right before she found out she'd won the lottery." Someone had talked. Probably Fred or a bank employee, or one of the relatives who came asking for money and left empty-handed. "I'm not interested." "Ma'am, it's an inspiring story. So many people are going through similar situations." I thought about it. How many grandmothers were enduring humiliation for fear of being alone? How many older women were being exploited by children who saw them as objects of convenience? What kind of interview? A simple conversation, for you to tell your story, so other people know it's never too late to reclaim your dignity. I accepted. The interview aired on a Wednesday night. There I was, sitting in my living room, in my new dress, my dignity restored, telling my story without tears, without rage, just with the tranquility of someone who had found peace. "What would you say to other people who are living through similar situations?" the journalist asked me. "That real love doesn't hurt, that a real family doesn't exploit you, and that it is never, ever too late to say no to someone who treats you wrong." The story went viral. Thousands of people shared it. Hundreds wrote me messages of support, telling me their own stories of family abuse and financial exploitation. But the most important thing came 3 days later. A soft knock on my door at 6 in the evening. It was Stephen, alone, without Jessica, without demands, without excuses. "Mom, I saw the interview. And I'm ashamed." "So ashamed? Of what?" "Of letting you be treated like that. Of treating you like that myself. And what are you going to do with that shame?" "Learn, change, earn you back if you give me the chance." I looked him in the eyes. The same brown eyes as his father, the ones that had cried on my lap when he got hurt as a child. "You don't have to earn me. I'm your mother. I will always love you. But you do have to respect me. Will you teach me how?" It was the first time in years he had asked me to teach him anything. "You can start by telling me you love me because I'm your mom, not because I have money. I love you because you're my mom," he said. And for the first time in a long time, I believed him. Today, 6 months later, I live in my house in the Willow Historic District with a garden full of flowers that the twins and I planted together. Stephen visits me every Sunday, alone, without Jessica, and we talk about things that matter. about his dreams, his fears, about the mistakes we both made along the way. Jessica and I maintain a respectful distance. We aren't friends, and probably never will be. But we are no longer enemies. She learned that money can buy many things, but it can't buy the forgiveness of a woman who has reclaimed her dignity. The twins have a sleepover with me one weekend a month. I teach them to make cookies from scratch, tell them stories about when their dad was a boy, and explain that grandparents aren't burdens. We are treasures to be cared for with love. And every Friday, religiously, I go to Fred's corner store and buy my lottery ticket. I don't need to win anymore, but I still play my numbers because they remind me that sometimes life has to abandon you so you can learn how to come back to yourself. When I look back, I see all the pain as the price I paid for my freedom, and it was worth every tear. Have you ever experienced something like this? Do you know someone who has been treated like a burden by their own family? Tell me in the comments. And if this story moved you, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, so this message can reach someone who needs to know it's never too late to get back the respect you deserve.